that's what we do as adults, isn't it? We wait for some huge event at the end of the rainbow to kind of find that joy, find that happiness, find that small little win. But the day is full of wins, the fact that, we got up today and the fact that we're having this conversation, this is a win, and, you were talking about your coffee as well. Just having that coffee in the morning, that's a win. And, what I love to do as well is when I'm drinking my tea, because I'm British, just to feel the warmth of the cup. And, I associate that warmth with something I'm grateful for.
Mm.
Something in the day. It could be the cup of tea, or it could be, that I'm going to go and do a great run in a minute. But that's a win as well, to be able to celebrate that gratitude. And that's something that we can implement every single day, because, we all go through that moment. But we all rush through that moment because we're on our phones, or we're talking to someone. But just taking 10 seconds to feel that warmth associated with something that you're grateful for. And, gratitude kind of breaks that autopilot we have in our mind of negativity.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dunedain Systems. Dunedain is excited to introduce Warmind, an AI platform purpose-built for the military. Warmind supports operational product generation, massively accelerating planning, operations knowledge management, and intel workflows. What makes Warmind different is it actually connects to your unit's data and learns how your specific warfighting function operates. It's not some generic chatbot. It's a full agentic system built by warfighters for warfighters. Warmind understands, learns, and helps you iterate on your SOPs, your planning processes, your IMTO, your operational doctrine, and more. Units across SOCOM, the broader DoD, are already using it, already cutting workflows that used to take days down to minutes. Now, the beta is free for a limited time for .mil and .edu users. So head over to dunedinsystems.com. That's DUNEDAIN systems.com and just hit try for free. Today's episode sponsor is Aditon, creators of Aditon Operations Kit, the military's go-to software for personnel and equipment accountability. AOK goes where you do, any network, anytime, any place. I got to know Aditon's co-founders, James and JJ, several years ago. They are former Army NCOs who have years of experience in the tech industry. They understand that most military jobs aren't performed behind a computer desk. Personnel and operations are distributed, but accountability of property is paramount to making mission. That's where Logi, AOK's equipment management software, comes into play. Formerly known as 92X, Logi is a next generation of equipment management for the military. Logi offers unrivaled features for military teams on the go. Ingest and digitize your primary and sub-hand receipts. Generate and share sub-hand receipts and DA forms with your team in just a few clicks. Capture photos, tags, and notes across your team to build context on the state of equipment. Get easy on-the-go access to critical property records. Logi is custom built for the modern military professional. It gives you your valuable time back so you can get back to the mission at hand at home or in the field. Whether you're doing monthly inventories or preparing for deployment, Logi is your pocket property book, giving you real-time visibility into equipment status and mission readiness. Logi is currently in use across the U.S. Army Special Forces, and it's expanding. For a limited time, listeners of the From the Green Notebook podcast can try out Logi for free. Visit aditonppc.com/FTGN-Logi to get started. That's adytonppc.com/FTGN-LOGE. How do I know what I think until I see what I say?
The Green Notebook, carried by military leaders around the world. Within those pages are sweat, tears, triumphs, and the hard-won lessons of life. Lessons worth sharing. Each week, the team dives into the notebooks of military leaders, business professionals, authors, athletes and coaches, and entertainers to share lessons and help you lead with the best version of yourself.
Welcome to another episode of From the Green Notebook. I'm your host, Joe Byerly, and today we're diving into the Green Notebook of Sam Yo. Sam's journey is unlike anyone I've had on the podcast. Before becoming one of the most recognizable instructors on Peloton, he performed on London's West End stage and later spent time as a Buddhist monk in a Thai monastery. In his new book, The Monk's Mindset, Sam shares the lessons that helped him move from chaos to clarity and how that wisdom applies to our own lives. This conversation isn't about mindfulness and meditation. We talk about those things, but it's more about learning how to slow down in a world that constantly pushes us to speed up. It's about finding peace without needing to escape your responsibilities and building habits that help you become more present, disciplined, and grounded. And what I appreciated most about my talk with Sam is he makes all these ideas feel extremely practical. It's something all of us can do. We also talk about why Sam chose to become a monk in the first place, what life inside a monastery was actually like, and how those experiences continue to shape the way he approaches leadership, coaching, and life today. We also discuss the tension between ambition and contentment, why so many of us struggle to sit still with our own thoughts, and how mindfulness isn't about escaping reality, but about becoming more awake to it. And honestly, I think this conversation will resonate with a lot of people in our community because many of us have spent years operating at such a high tempo and are now searching for ways to become more intentional with our time, energy, and attention. So I think you're going to love this interview. And one more thing, if you're on Peloton, please connect with me there. My username is Green Notebook J. That's the letter J. So grab your green notebooks and please welcome to the show, Sam Yo.
If you're ready to start this podcast, give me a big yes, yo.
Yes, yo. All right. Hey, for people who are like, what the hell just happened? If you don't know, Sam's a Peloton instructor, and it's an amazing community that I've been a part of now for a couple of months. So I've done several rides with Sam. So I was all excited about starting the podcast that way. Well, Sam, like if I was when I was telling people that I'm having a theater performer, a Buddhist monk, and a Peloton instructor on the show, they thought I was doing like 3 different episodes. but in reality, it's a single interview with you today talking about your book, The Monk's Mindset. And so I just want to start off, like one of the ideas that came out of this was that you've kind of come to view life as a jigsaw puzzle. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think sometimes in life we kind of have this framework of who we think we are, and we strive to be this person. And what it is with experiences, from my experiences in theatre and in the monastery and Peloton and now writing a book, these are all pieces which I never knew that I had. So, these pieces seem to fit seamlessly, and sometimes they don't fit seamlessly. Sometimes we have pieces where we're adamant that they should fit, that they don't, and we hold on to these things. And the puzzle is multidimensional. It's not just a flat surface. And as you said, I've done so many things, and there's so many different pieces to my puzzle. And that's the beauty of life, isn't it? It's never just a straight line.
It is. And what I think is really interesting is you're in your 20s, you're doing very well on West End. And for those who aren't familiar with it, West End is the British version of Broadway, and it's probably actually older than Broadway. And so Sam's doing really well. And then Sam, you all of a sudden made a pivot to go to Thailand and become a monk. And what I think is really interesting is a lot of people are good at things, like they have mastery of something, but it doesn't give them meaning. And then they never make that shift. So I'm just curious, like what was that like for you, realizing that what you're doing isn't filling your cup anymore, even though you're really good at what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I went from training to the biggest stage in the West End. So I was doing my end of year shows and exams, and I was rehearsing on the London Palladium, which is like world famous. So, I kind of jumped from one thing to the other. So success, I was so blessed that success came to me so quickly. And eventually, I was kind of moving up the ranks in theatre and getting more exposure. And externally, everything looked amazing. But internally, there was a disconnect. I was always restless, and I was always chasing the next achievement. I was never celebrating where I was. I was 20 years old. I turned 20 in rehearsals, and like the whole cast sung to me, and like these are some amazing people I looked up to for forever. They're singing happy birthday to me in the first week. I'm like, wow, this is where I am now. But I never enjoyed that moment. I just moved on to the next one, moved on to the next one, and I kept shifting different versions of myself to kind of fit the room. And eventually, I was just on autopilot and on this kind of emotional roller coaster, which was theatre. And I came to a point where, like in the book I talk about, I almost had an accident, crashed my car. And it was that point I realized that, I had not been present for any of my life, and that felt really uncomfortable, being in my skin, being present. And that really shifted my perspective of what values and what, success meant to me. Because internally I was just not, there was no foundation. Yeah.
And then you make the leap to, what everybody does when they're trying to figure stuff out, move to Thailand, enjoy join a monastery. What was
I could have gone backpacking. It would be easier.
what was that transition like? Because a lot of our listeners are in the military, join the military, and they go from this life that's very comfortable, very ordinary, so to speak, and then all of a sudden they shave their heads and they find themselves in this whole new world. And you found yourself in just a completely different one as well. What was that shock like to you?
So, coming from, because I did martial arts and I trained in dance and I was in theatre, so I was very, very physically disciplined all the time, and I loved that discipline. But the monastery taught me that, discipline didn't mean kind of pushing harder. The monastery life, true discipline was about consistency of awareness. And, anyone can drive themselves to exhaustion, but sustainable discipline requires, understanding your mind and your emotions and your habits and also your limits as well. So, discipline without self-awareness, can gradually become self-destruction. And I was kind of on that kind of roller coaster to that before the monastery.
And before we get into some of those lessons, I'd love for you to share the 5 items that you got when you joined. Yeah.
Yeah. So like before the monastery, I was one of those guys who bought like every DVD, every DVD. I think I had like over 500. I think I watched maybe 20% of them, but I just loved piling them up. And my CD collection, and I would just buy all this stuff. And I had this.
Real quick, you're in your 40s now, right?
47, yeah.
Yeah. So am I. So do you feel like, I look back on all those giant binders of CDs that I once owned, and I was the same way, man. If there was a DVD out, maybe I'd want to see it, maybe not. I just needed the DVD in my room. Do you feel kind of bad now that you collected all that stuff and it's like the technology's moved on?
It's all in like a little handheld device now. But
Sorry,
DVDs and films, those binders, and when you get in your car and before you drive your car, you're like flipping through the binder and like trying to find something to listen to.
Yeah. Way more distracting than a phone.
Of course, yeah. And I had a great little sports car. That's the first thing I bought myself when I started to get successful, was this little Ford Puma sports car. Which I saw in an advert when Steve McQueen was driving. They CGI his face on this Ford Puma advert. I was like, oh my God, I've got to have that, because I felt it kind of reflected my success. But when I went to the monastery, you actually go in with only 5 items. It's an ancient tradition. So you go in with your robes that you're wearing, the belt to hold the robes up, your alms bowl, which will hold your nutrition and sustenance. You have a razor. So the razor is when you've got to shave your hair and head and have a glow up, and glow up in the monastery. And you have a water filter. So the water filter represents when years ago monks didn't live in temples; they lived in the forest, so they had to filter water to drink. So you had 5 items, and I realized that I had been attached to all of these things all my life that I thought defined my identity. But once I got rid of it, my identity and became a little clearer, and that allowed me to kind of really dig a little deeper into myself and who I was and what I was missing and why I felt so displaced.
And one of my favorite things is the hero's journey. Like I love the story of the hero's journey. And one of the important aspects of the hero's journey is it's the mentor who guides the hero through this unknown world and kind of teaches them the lessons and shows them the path, shows them the way.
Yeah.
Who is your mentor at the monastery?
So my mentor, he's a monk called John Paul, and like a lot of the lessons in the book comes from his words and his wisdom. And initially, when I was going into the monastery, I thought I was going to go into a monastery where my cousin was. That was way, way out. But my family, for my safety, I think I write in the book was afraid that this city boy would get lost in the forest and get bitten by a snake. So when I got to Thailand, they said, no, we're going to keep you local, but you're going to go to this monastery, and we found your mentor. And the first time I met him was the day I landed off the plane and just walked into my aunt's living room, and there he was, just sitting by the door, and his light kind of behind him, looking so like, glowing. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. But he taught me so much about myself, and there's something that he said to me just before I left, because I was afraid to leave the monastery because I was afraid I was going to lose all the practices and the grounding that I'd learned there. And he said to me, um, the calmest person in the room often carries the greatest strength. Mm. And when there's times when you feel the anxiety, when you feel overwhelmed, just remember that and be that person in that room, and always kind of return to your breath, return to the moment, and return to yourself. And when you feel like that, but yeah, he was my I was his Padawan. He was a Jedi master at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like a lot of I love the lessons because like a lot of the quotes you had in there were from him. And like in my own life, it was like super hectic. First 15 years of my career, I'd wake up early, I'd run out the door, shave my face real quick, drink some coffee, go through like a 12, 13, 14-hour day, get home, crash, do it all again. And when I started a morning ritual of reading, writing, and reflecting,
yeah,
it was a grounding thing. And you learned the same lesson in the monastery, right?
Yes, because I never reflected, and I started writing these journals when I got there. Just at the beginning, it was to give me something to do because I had nothing to do. There was no distractions. So I thought, okay, I'll just write what happened in the day, and I would sketch things. And on my book, there's these patterns here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which are kind of the patterns from the doors where I was ordained as
wow.
a monk. So that was in my journals, and reflecting was something I never did. I never reflected. I was always moving, moving, and moving. And these days when people ask me, how do I reflect, and I don't have time to sit there and journal, and it's fine. Sometimes we don't, but then we kind of use that as an excuse. And what I like to do, is, it's a habit stack. So, when you're in the evening and you're brushing your teeth, so that moment that you create what's called a monk mindset moment as you're brushing your teeth, and, just ask yourself 3 questions about the day, what drained me today? What mattered today? And, what deserves my attention tomorrow? Just these 3 questions as you're brushing your teeth. And you have this mindful moment there built in to the structure of your day without having to go off to a temple in Thailand to find it.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, I just keep saying your mentor because I'm gonna mess his name up. But he talked about, like the foundation of your day, like being like, if it's not there, that morning ritual, I think he said something about like the cracks will show like later in the day.
Yes.
So after you left the monastery, do you still practice some sort of morning ritual before you get your day going?
Yes, I do. I have maybe 4 or 5, I call them anchors in the morning. So the first thing I do in the morning before you reach for your phone, before you do anything, is to breathe. So I take, 5 deep breaths, because in that moment when you first wake up is when your mind is the clearest. Now, that's before, the notifications kick in, and the algorithm and the meetings and the people. So that's when you are you, truly you, and you're clearest. So those 5 deep breaths, I always kind of say to myself, how do I want to show up today? How do I want to show up today? And then what I do as well is I sit on the edge of my bed, and I open the blinds, and I just let the light in. So I feel, the sun. Occasionally when you're in London, it's there, but you kind of feel the environment. And during the day, because my day is really busy, I always remember during the day that you need a time to reset. If you've been sitting at your desk, that time is when I need to reset. And sometimes it's movement, sometimes I make Lego. I'm like a huge Lego nerd, and I have boxes and boxes of Lego, and I'll just open the pack, and I'll just build that little section, and it just brings me into that moment. It's creative meditation, and then it takes me out of all the stress that has been sprinkled around the day, and that really sets me up just from the morning to the afternoon, and then the evening. You have, like I said, you reflect and stuff like that. But I always move in the morning. I think within the first maybe half an hour, I'm moving or exercising. Yeah, because I'm sort of, movement is such a gift, and I think we forget that sometimes. So I start my day so much with just that gift as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's same, Sam. Like I said, I found that my practice anchors me. And I think like everybody, like I'm reading the rapper Rick Ross. I'm reading his book on creativity right now. And he talks about every morning he goes on these barefoot walks through his property. But he's like, those are important to me. And so I think like whoever's listening to this right now, like if you got to find that one thing, whether it's sitting on the edge of the bed and taking in the environment. I come downstairs, cup of alpha coffee, drink drink the coffee, light a candle, and then I start journaling and reading. That's how I like start my day. But it's been a game changer. Something else too, in the timing of reading this book has been amazing. Like I quit running for about 2 years. My knees were like really bothering me, and I slowly started getting back into it. And I was getting really mad at myself because I wasn't what I was doing when I was like in my 30s. I was like running sevens. Now, like I'm barely breaking 10, 11. I'm having to stop. And so there's a line in your book. You talk about how when we were children, we celebrate everything. We celebrate first words. We celebrate first steps, even tying our shoes. But as adults, we like rush past the wins. And so like I started like actually like, hey, I'm getting out here today, even though I'm in pain and it hurts. Like I'm doing it. I'm getting better. And then just last week, like right after I finished your book, I found myself running in the sevens again. And I would have never gotten there if I wouldn't have like celebrated those small wins. And again, I just appreciate you bringing that back into focus for me.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And I think that's what we do as adults, isn't it? We wait for some huge event at the end of a rainbow to kind of find that joy, find that happiness, find that small little win. But the day is full of wins. The fact that we got up today, and the fact that we're having this conversation. This is a win. And you were talking about your coffee as well. Just having that coffee in the morning, that's a win. And what I love to do as well is when I'm drinking my tea, because I'm British, just to feel the warmth of the cup, and I associate that warmth with something I'm grateful for.
Mm.
Something in the day. It could be the cup of tea, or it could be that I'm going to go and do a great run in a minute. But that's a win as well, to be able to celebrate that gratitude. And that's something that we can implement every single day, because we all go through that moment. But we all rush through that moment because we're on our phones, or we're talking to someone. But just taking 10 seconds to feel that warmth associated with something that you're grateful for. And gratitude kind of breaks that autopilot we have in our mind of negativity, doesn't it? It grounds us into the moment, what we have now, and the amazing and beautiful things around us.
Yeah, I actually read, I think somewhere that like if you actually, again, going back to the practice of journaling, if you journal about things that you're grateful for, you will find yourself subconsciously looking and scanning the environment every day to find things to be grateful for.
Yeah,
And that small shift
yeah.
changes your outlook. I'd like to introduce you to our newest partner, Roger Bank, a modern digital military bank built by military members for military members. Whether you're stationed stateside or overseas, Roger is designed to meet the unique needs of our men and women in uniform. I recently opened an account myself, and the process was incredibly smooth. It took less than 10 minutes from start to finish. Now, here's why I'm excited to partner with Roger. They offer high yield checking and savings accounts, zero account fees, early payday, and automatic savings with Roundup Match. Their military ready direct deposit form is even auto populated and signed by the CEO, saving you time and hassle. Plus, you get free global ATM access, real person customer support, and they even offer accounts for service members as young as 17. Funds are FDIC insured through Citizens Bank of Edmond, so you can bank with confidence and peace of mind. Visit roger.bank to learn more. That's ROGER.bank. Well, something else too that I'd like to talk about is meditation. I know for you, somebody who is in this fast-paced world of West End, you're traveling all over the country, doing these performances night after night, like a lot of noise, a lot of clutter in
Mm.
your life. And then when you get to this monastery, you're having to learn to meditate for the first time. Could you talk about that process and what you learned?
Oh my God. So a lot of people think when you go to the monastery, you know, it's going to be stillness, it's going to be quiet, it's going to be peaceful. But what a lot of people don't realize is when you first sit still with yourself, your mind amplifies and is as loud as possible, and so loud. You know, I think the first one and a half uh, parts of my journal was just me complaining. Literally, I was like, my God, I was complaining. I was really like complaining about everything. You know,
You made it
uh,
sound so good in the book, by the way. So you left that part out. Go ahead.
yeah, it's the monk's mindset, not the complaining monk. um, so with meditation, um, I was so bad at it because after every lesson, we'd sit afterwards and you know Ajahn who guide us through meditation, and all I would be thinking about was you know how long the time is going and just fidgeting on the cushion and scratching my face and and you know I struggled sitting still. I think for the first month because I thought meditation at the time was clearing your mind. No, you got to clear your mind and everything will be great. But you know, if you cleared your mind, then we have a problem because we're going to have to call the paramedics because that's impossible, you know. And I struggled so much with that, and it took me a while before I was admitting to him that I was struggling, and I was doing exactly what I was doing in the monastery, but I was doing performing on stage. I was pretending. I was performing that I was meditating, but I wasn't. Just to fit in the room, it was so funny. I was performing that I was meditating to fit in a room of monks, being a monk. There's so many like funny layers there. Um, so he told me to, you know, do some walking meditation because, you know, I engage more with movement and we have this courtyard in the temple. And he said, no, I just want you to walk around this courtyard and all you need to do is feel the ground on your feet. Breathe and feel the ground on your feet. Breathe and feel the ground on your feet. And then from that sensation of being in where my feet are, I was able to kind of draw into myself more. And, you know, meditation isn't about, you know, clearing your mind or your thoughts. Meditation is about being where you are with your thoughts in that moment. You know, and like they're like clouds, you know, these thoughts will come into your mind. The you know the dark ones will stay a bit longer, but then eventually they will drift. That's what meditation is to acknowledge these thoughts and let them drift. You know, and he used to say to me like, you know, we are not our thoughts, we are the vessels that carry the thoughts. and they would just keep passing. So, you know, anyone who's struggling for meditation, you know, it's not about clearing your mind, it's about acknowledging these things and meeting yourself where you are. And a lot of people struggle with that because when you meet yourself where you are, there's all these questions that bubble up, which you've been avoiding, and which you kind of been running from, and which you've been moving forward all the time to not kind of, you know, no, there's questions that we know we should be asking ourselves. You know, we have that inner wisdom and we know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, for me at least, like I associated change with growth. I was like constantly moving from job to job. I'm getting older. I'm
Mm,
getting more established. I'm making more money. And, you know, like what I didn't realize was like the one place I wasn't focused on was my internal world.
mm,
And it wasn't until I learned to like slow down a little bit more that I
yeah,
could actually grow.
of course. Yeah. It's sometimes we mistake movement with meaning.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and meaning, if you build meaning on a shaky foundation, eventually, you know, things are gonna crack through it. And after a while, you're gonna think, okay, what is the point? Why am I doing this? You know, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I heard you say, I don't know if you wrote it in a book, but you definitely talked about it in an interview. You talked about like like earlier in your life, like in your 20s, like you were reacting to the
Mm,
world. Like, you know, like an opportunity would come up, you would just take it. You know,
yeah.
like you were just whatever was happening, you were just going along with it. And then after your time in the monastery, all of a sudden you're making conscious choices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's huge, and I think, like, that's, like, the benefit of self-reflection.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time we move through our day, like you said, reacting instead of intentionally responding. So, you know, I think that sometimes as we get older, then time seems to pass much quicker. Oh my God, it's Christmas already.
Yeah.
We just had this, but it's because we're just reacting and moving through it, and not taking these intentional moments to, like you said, even celebrate the small wins. And that's why as kids, you know, when we had like summer holidays, it seemed like an eternity. You can do everything in those few weeks with your friends, because we're celebrating and we're doing new things. And as we do new things, you know, we're growing at the same time. And I think sometimes as adults, we stop learning, we stop growing. So everything becomes exactly the same, and each day becomes, you know, same thing, autopilot and unintentional. Um, yeah.
And once you align those things, which you did, you talked about, I guess, like, it was, like, one of the final lessons I think you learned from the monastery, which was the importance of right effort.
Mm,
Um, and so I think, like, as you went through your life and, you know, once you left there, of just showing up and putting in the
mm.
effort that you can give, how you never know where that'll take you.
No, of course, you know, and before the monastery, you know, I kind of put my best effort when there's a room full of people. You know, your best effort for, you know, when you're on stage, and even when you're on stage, sometimes, you know, you have 8 shows a week, and you know, some of the shows, you know, that the audience is going to be a little more kind of reserved and not as responsive, and it's generally the matinees. So you do what's called like a matinee performance, where your energy is maybe 80%, because you don't want to waste it on people who are not actually going to react to you. But the right effort is applying your full intention to every single thing. You know, we're built in the moments alone, not built in the moments spaces where people will see us. And I think in the book I wrote about when I had to clean the crematorium, yeah, it's like, and so, yeah, even me just saying it now, it's like I had to clean the crematorium. I had to sweep it and by myself, and you know, the first week, 2 weeks, I was just like, no one's going to see this, and just wipe it and that, and then, you know, unfortunately, then, you know, one of the families who are, you know, saying goodbye to one of their loved ones kind of complained it was dirty, and they had to clean it themselves. I was like, oh my God, you know, I didn't see the space as, I saw the space as just a space, but not as a memory which someone's going to have, a memory of their last memory, or maybe their loved one. And from that, I would clean it religiously after that. And I think in the book, I told her I would get a toothbrush and clean the teeth of the nagas, which are like little dragons. And it wasn't because it wasn't for anyone else to see. It was just so I knew I applied the right effort. And that's kind of rippled into when I was coaching, and how Peloton actually found me. I was teaching a 6 a.m. class on a Friday morning, and there was only 5 people in the room, which holds maybe 60. And my producer who came, they were like blind casting. So that morning we came, and it was end of the week, and only 5 people, and they'd been to a few classes in the morning, and they can tell that energy level of the instructor was down. But he said, when we went there, you made it feel like there was 60 people in the room. You engaged everyone, your energy was great, and you made everyone feel seen. And it's just because I had this kind of thing for the monastery of always bringing that right effort. And from that, it kind of rippled into them asking me to audition, and then getting the job, and then all the amazing things that have happened to me now. And now I'm talking to you on this podcast.
Yeah,
And this podcast, I mean, if I really look at it, this podcast started this from the moment I was cleaning teeth with the toothbrush all those years ago, that rippling effect of having that mentality. And now I'm here talking to you.
That's amazing. Again, like how life works that way. And like writing for me now that I've left the military and I write, I write every week, and I don't know if 5 people are going to read it, 1,000 people are going to read it. And I just try to show up the same way. So the last thing I'm just, as we wind this interview down, Sam, is how is, you learn these lessons in the monastery when you were like 24, and now you're 47. Like, how is that like continued to affect and shape your life? And if there's like one lesson from that time, like what would it be that you could go and tell that young 20-year-old version of yourself, or a younger person listening to this episode now?
I would go back and say, no, it's going to be right. It's okay not to have it all figured out. And I think we put a lot of stress on ourselves to have it all figured out. But it's not that. Life is a jigsaw puzzle. We go collecting the pieces. And that's all you can do, is collect these pieces and place it into your frame. And, and at the end, you just trust that the picture is going to be more beautiful than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah, I think one other thing too is that, like, in your book, I love a lot of people who write books, they'll quote like ancient philosophers, stuff like that. No, you bring in movie quotes and
Yeah.
Legos.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, Sam definitely wrote this book.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talk about like Lego pieces, it's like there's a red one, a brown one, a green, whatever. Like, it's just a Lego piece. But once you put the whole thing together, you make a really intricate, work of art at the end of it. And it's just recognizing the importance, because you need that piece. And so I think that's really important too, because a lot of things that we do are like false starts, or, it just doesn't work out the way we thought it was going to be. But there's like lessons that we can pull from that'll help us in the next chapter of our lives too.
Yeah. And I think I say in the book, we're not the set, we are the builder.
Right.
So always take the set apart and put it back together again.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, Sam, like what all do you have going on right now in life besides Peloton?
Besides Peloton, besides the book, I'm renovating my first house as well. So I'm really needing my book, staying grounded through all these things. But we're just about to go on an amazing book tour across the US. I'm really, really excited about that. And, and what I really love about this book at the moment is getting to meet people and connect and build this sense of community. Emotional connection is so important. But hopefully I will eventually do another show. People could keep asking me, "Are you going to go back and do a show?" And I do want to. I went back and did a show while writing this book, while doing Peloton at the same time. And I went back to do The King and I, which was the show I did when I was in my 20s. And I went back and I had the opportunity to play the King of Siam this time.
Wow.
I was the lead. And I was the first Thai actor to ever play the role of the King of Siam in the 75 years that the show has been conceived. So I was like, wow, this is a moment now, and the journey from the disconnected actor there to the man I am today, that led me to stand on a stage leading the show now. But I think what I would love to do is maybe one day play that role on Broadway. I think I'm putting it out on my vision board, be the first Thai actor to play the role of the King of the King on Broadway.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's this has been great, Sam. Like I know you, like, it's the first time you and I have met, but I've gotten to know you now over the last couple of months in my garage. And I just finished the book, The Monk's Mindset. Thought it was amazing. Just so many great lessons, and a lot of the stuff that I write about on a daily basis. Like it was all in there, and I loved seeing it. So Sam, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. And whenever you're in London, come see me, and we'll do a live class. You can do a Yes Show live.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sam, and best of luck with the book tour. I hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of From the Green Notebook podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please give us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us gain visibility and the opportunity to help more people on their leadership journey. Also, make sure you check out our website at www.fromthegreennotebook.com. There, you can listen to past episodes, read leadership articles written by military leaders from around the world. You can sign up for our monthly reading list email where you can learn about new books that are coming out, and our Sunday reflection email that comes out every Sunday morning. Is really short. It's a 2-minute read, but I guarantee you it's going to start your week off on the right foot. Finally, make sure you follow us on Twitter at FTGN Notebook, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for From the Green Notebook. Again, thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. I am humbled by the opportunity to learn these lessons alongside you. So please join us next week for another episode of From the Green Notebook, where we're going to help you lead with the best version of yourself.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down.